Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, right, yeah. They're on, they're on. Test, Mayor Pro Tem, City Attorney Splendoria, are you ready?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We are ready to start
Okay.
the meeting.
Okay. Call this meeting to order. The regular council session, July 13th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilmember Ambrose.
Ready to begin?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay. Please remain standing for the invocation.
Before we pray tonight, I would just like to read 2 verses from Psalm 121. Verse 1 says, I will lift up mine eyes into the hills, from whence cometh my help. Verse 2 says, my help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, thank you for all that you've done for us. Thank you for all that you've given to us. We do ask you for help tonight. We ask you for wisdom. We ask you for direction. Father, we ask you for strength. Lord, we thank you for our city council. We thank you for the members of our community who are here. And we pray for the decisions that will be made tonight. Father, we pray for the future of our community, that you would bless it. And Father, we thank you for our country. We thank you for the men and women who serve, whether it's in our United States military or in our local law enforcement or in our fire department. We're so grateful for their service, and we pray that you'd watch over them and keep them safe, bless their families, and once again, be with this meeting tonight. We ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Roll call.
Ambrose,
Here.
Kale,
Here.
Vieira. Here. Raymond. Raymond.
Here.
Then for the record, Creighton is absent.
So the mayor, the mayor sends his deepest regrets. He had to go out of town for a family emergency. So we all keep them in our prayers. That'd be great. Are there any subsequent need items?
Mayor Pro Tem, there are no subsequent need items.
Okay. Move for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion
Anyone make a motion?
as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Ambrose, second by Vieira. Call for the question.
Ambrose,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Ceremonial matters. The Patriotic Porch Parade winners.
Mayor Pro Tem, tonight we're going to have the ceremonial matters, and we'll have one of the council members, as well as we have from Atwater Police Officers Association, Dave Sargentson, as one of our presenters. And we also have from the Recreational Department, Corey Billings, to present those certificates and
Okay.
awards.
Let's have Councilwoman Vieira.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Go down and present the awards. Oh, sorry, Corey. Thank you. I'm gonna put it for you right now. It's quite a- Thanks.
Good evening. It is with great honor that we're up here this evening representing all of the City of Atwater and all of the wonderful people who came forward through the community to support the Patriotic Porch Parade. We had over 60 entries in the Porch Parade, and it was a great evening, great afternoon. If you had the opportunity to go around and see all of the different entries, it truly was amazing to see Atwater step up and show its pride in another way. So best business, we had a lot of different entries, and in first place for best business, we're going to go to Castle Vista for best business. Is there a representative from Castle Vista? Castle Vista not only decorated their clubhouse, but many of the residents at Castle Vista also decorated their homes. So we want to thank all of the people from Castle Vista as well. So there were, like I said, there were 60 homes out there, and the first place was 3164 Lark Avenue, Freedom, Liberty, and Pride, the Mook family. Is there a representative? We'd like to have them come up. So there were several neighborhoods that completely went all out, and this year's best neighborhood went to White Pines neighborhood. White Pines, there are 14 homes on their cul-de-sac, and all 14 homes stepped up and decorated their homes. So congratulations to White Pines. I believe we have a plaque and some certificates for you as well. I believe those representatives. We want to thank Victory Baptist Church for also donating. Come on up, Pastor. And then the Atwater Police Officers Association stepped up as well, and they're going to have a perpetual plaque. So those winners will now be on the perpetual plaque that will be placed somewhere in a city facility with their names that will be representative for the future. Thank you and congratulations. Yes. So this one went to Best Home. Who was Best Home? We'll give certificate for you.
Mayor Pro Tem, that concludes our Patriotic Porch Parade winners for ceremonial matters.
Okay. Consent calendar.
Background information has been provided on all matters listed under the consent calendar. These items are considered to be routine. All items under the consent calendar are normally approved by one motion. If discussion is requested on any item, that item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Are there any items on the consent calendar that the City Council would like to remove for separate discussion and possible action? No? Are there any members of the public who would like to speak regarding any items remaining on the consent calendar? If so, please come to the podium now.
Mayor Pro Tem, there are no public comments regarding the consent calendar.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motion by Kale, second by Ambrose. Call for the question.
Deanna,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Ambrose,
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Item number 8, public hearings. Naming the field located on the northwest side of Osborne Park, commonly known as Osborne Field, the Frank Raponte Memorial Field. I'll open the public hearing and receive any testimony.
Mayor Pro Tem, this is Greg, the Public Works / Community Development Director. I just wanted to make sure and point out to the council and to the public that the applicant has already received the recommendation and endorsement of the Planning Commission. This was a publicly heard item at the regularly scheduled Planning Commission for last month, and they've received the recommendation of the commission. So I wanted to make sure that the council and the public was aware that it had been through that process.
Okay, thank you, Director Thompson.
My understanding is also that the applicant is in the audience if there are questions.
Is there anybody else?
No, I have no questions, but I was wondering if someone wanted to speak on this, to just give some public comment as to tell us a little bit about this person.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you, council members. My name's Tom Legg. I'm a longtime resident of Atwater. Grew up here, went to school here, worked for the city for a little while, worked in the Parks and Recreation Department, and I worked many hours at Osborne Park. Frank Raponte, who I've asked to have this park named after, was a longtime citizen of Atwater. He was both a civic leader as well as a public figure in the Parks Department. But the work that you see out there, when we first started, the fields were not in good playing condition at all. Under Frank's guidance and knowledge, we're able to get those fields up to a standard to where AAU teams and all kinds of tournament teams and the city prospered under what we did with the park and with Frank's guidance. There was not a weekend that there was not something going on at that field tournament-wise, which as you most know, that tournaments generate funds to the community all up and down Bellevue Avenue and further into town. But Frank worked tirelessly throughout the year. That was not just a summer field or spring field, it was fall and winter as well. When he retired from the city, he continued working with the community in various aspects, either consulting or just giving his advice to those that were participating in the activities of the city. He was well-rounded. He was taught judo at no cost to kids. Worked for the base for Castle at the gym out there when the base was open. And very knowledgeable individual and a very stalwart citizen of this community. And with my knowledge of many of the parks that have been named up to this point in time, his name belongs on that list as a contributor to the city of Atwater and to its prosperity. So if there's any comments, any questions, I'm here to answer. There was some issue with funding. I think that had come up as a concern as went to the Planning Commission. That was going to be self-funded. I was going to do a GoFundMe page along with reaching out to those that knew Frank for donations to put some kind of plaque or something on that field. Also, it came to my attention that the scoreboard needs to be updated. And part of that GoFundMe request would be to get funding for a new scoreboard that we would put Frank Raponte's name, the park title, on the top of the scoreboard there in center field where the current scoreboard is. So we're not going to hurt the look of the park. We just wanted to appropriately name it for somebody that represented the city with pride.
And this is just the one, I think when you
One
first
park-
drive into the left, which is
The first park you come to as you're going,
what's now called Osborne.
yes, the one is
Okay.
called Osborne, right? The one behind it is Miyake. This one is in the front. It's a smaller field.
Right.
But there's a lot of work there and a lot of heart, soul, and blood, sweat, and tears that went into doing what we did for that park.
I know that every once in a while there's someone like you have described as this individual that steps up in the community and kind of takes a lead. We have a lot of people in our community that are happy to give a helping hand, but every once in a while there's someone that stands out. I know there's other people that different fields over there have been named after, one being very close to my heart at Raymond Field. So I think it's honorable that we do the right thing when we find someone like this who we can point at and say, look, they did a really great job, and especially something for the kids in our community, and to keep them playing ball or staying busy, because you know what they say about idle hands. So I think this is an honorable thing to do.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
No, I thought he had a question. I thought Councilmember Kell had a question.
No, I think the public did.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions from the public? Mayor Pro Tem, there are no other questions from the public?
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and see what the council wants to do.
Well, you know what, along with Mr. Legg, him and I worked side by side on a number of things when we were, when Tom was much younger, I should say. And I always respected Frank. He was like Tom said, a very hard-working guy. And one of the things that sticks out in my mind was he was very fair. Every time there became an issue, Frank would step in and dealt with it as fair as possible. And I agree that we can't have anything bad to say about that field being named after Frank Raponte. So I'll make the motion that we, let me read it. We name the field located on the northwest side of Osborne, commonly known as Osborne Field, the Frank Raponte Memorial Field.
I'll second your motion.
Okay, motion by Kale, second by Vieira. Call for the question.
Kale?
Yes.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Next, we're waiving the first reading and introducing an ordinance approving zone change from Plan Development PD 26 to Business Park BP for property located north of Bell Drive and west of Truckee Drive. Community Director Thompson.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council and the public. The zone change in front of you tonight, or the requested zone change, is initiated by the city. The property in question is owned by a successor agency to the redevelopment agency. It is currently in a PD 26 zone, which the balance of that property has been fragmented into separate ownership. Very similar to other instances where the planning staff has come to the city to ask to initiate a zone change on some previous planned development properties. The application, and again, comes at the recommendation of staff. What we're trying to do is provide for this particular piece of property, which is the only commercial section left of that original PD 26, to be zoned appropriately, just like the other piece that was done across from Truckee as a BP or mixed-use property. We feel that the staff is probably going to be returning once it's gone through the successor agency hearing. We're going to recommend that the City Council go through a Surplus Lands Act requirement of offering this property back for sale. And we feel that the highest and best use and zoning for that property to maintain or hold the highest value potentially for that agency is the BP zoning for that area. Again, this is something very similar in nature to what you've already seen. The mixed use provides for the best selection of zoning types throughout the city, really. Anything from office commercial all the way through light industrial would be identified under the BP zone. So we're very happy to bring this, and it does in fact come with staff's recommendation for the rezoning effort. And it has also received the recommendation of the Planning Commission as well.
Okay, thank you, Director Thompson. We will now open the public hearing. If anybody would like to speak on this, feel free to come on up to the podium.
Mayor Pro Tem, there is no one present for public comment.
Okay, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the dais. Anybody have anything they want to say?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation as presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Kale?
Motion by Vieira, second by Ambrose.
Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem. Kale?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Waiving the first reading and introducing ordinance amending the development agreement by and between the City of Atwater and Central Cal Brothers Incorporated regarding cannabis business pilot program for cannabis cultivation, manufacturing, dispensary, and distribution on property located at 664 Railroad Avenue, Atwater.
Good evening.
Director Thompson?
Good evening again, Mayor Pro Tem and council members and members of the public. Again, I wanted to make sure that people or the council understood the request and the intent from staff, which is the Cal Brothers Inc. already holds a development agreement for cannabis operation within the City of Atwater. And they have not applied for their conditional use permit. And one of the reasons that they haven't is because when they originally applied to the city for their business here, they listed all of these multitude of businesses to be able to fully develop the property. And if we go back in time to when the council gave direction on what it was that you were looking for from this program to begin with, a big major piece of that was the rehabilitation or reconstruction of new buildings to eliminate some of the blight and some of the other things that were going on. The other was in both types of public benefit for the public benefit that we receive along the way of fees and public benefit through the installation of much needed infrastructure. This project does all of those things. So we were very happy to work with the applicant. We very much appreciate their patience on this and reintroducing this to the council to amend it to be developed to the full extent of what their application first indicated. And again, as far as receiving benefit from one of these business applications to hit all of the marks that who had originally intended, we again definitely appreciate the patience of the applicant, and it does come with not only the recommendation of staff, but the recommendation of your planning commission. It has already been through them as well.
Thank you, Director Thompson.
Mayor,
We'll go ahead and open public hearing and receive any testimony.
Mayor Pro Tem, this is City Manager Waterman. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one clarification too. I just want to make sure that the council understands this is not changing a public benefit amount. It's just adding additional licensing to their application.
That is correct.
Okay, the public hearing is open.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. My name is Ember Madison, and I represent the applicant. We are here in the audience, local small business owners, We're happy to represent the city in the cannabis space. As was said by staff eloquently, there's not much to add here other than that we're really thankful for the stewardship from staff in this process. We know it's been a lot of regulations to get through. The state has changed a lot of things over time, and we're just really happy to get here to this point. We're available if you have any specific questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rich Miller, 334 Silva Drive, here in Atwater, also pastor Victory Baptist Church, 1280 Sierra Vista Street here in Atwater. So, real quick, I know I've heard Councilmember Vieira ask this before. Is there any way in layman's terms that someone could explain exactly what is going on in Atwater with all of the different plans? Because at one time I thought that there was going to be cannabis cultivation or retail out at the business park as you're going down Commerce that way. And then we have the development over by the new Circle K, I believe. And then now we have this that's coming across from Atwater Automotive, if I looked up the address correctly. So I know that we have different applicants at different points or different stages in the application process. And so maybe I'm the only one that looks at this and says, whoa, what's going on in Atwater? But at one time it sounded like it was all gonna be out at the business park. And then now it moved down past Denny's and Circle K, and then now it's coming over here. And everybody has a different view on cannabis, but I'm just trying to understand exactly where we are with the current applicants. Have we stopped taking applications? Where are all these people? And I know that this has been covered in past meetings, but I'm still confused about it myself, and I come to every meeting, to be honest with you. The last thing I was gonna ask too is, if anybody could give clarification on it, that'd be great. The other question I was gonna ask is, you mentioned infrastructure. So what kind of infrastructure is being provided here? Because the way that I see this is off of Atwater Boulevard. I'm not sure I didn't look at my map if it's before the railroad tracks or after the railroad tracks. But right now we have a lot of homeless people living over there. I don't live far from that. We have a lot of homeless people living down the road. I'll be honest with you, I'm getting frustrated because the governor's telling me I have to close my church building when we take temperatures and we do every precaution we can, but we've got homeless people living along the railroad tracks, and I know that's a Caltrans issue and stuff, but this is, I'm just concerned about what we are bringing to our city. So if you could tell me what kind of infrastructure that involves, that'd be great.
Okay, so if I understood kind of your questions in order so that we can make sure and get you some clarity. The reason that the city provides for different locations, the ones that you spoke about first, what was identified in our ordinance, in the zoning ordinance that's tied to the section of the municipal code that deals with the cannabis business pilot program, it identified the light industrial and heavy industrial areas of the city. That's the stuff that you're referring to that is off of Commerce and it's down there around Air Park Road. Because the BP zone or business park zone is designated as mixed use, it takes some of those uses into it as well. So there's actually 3 zones or districts that we have to identify for purposes of the pilot program. The 2 M1 and M2 uses, which are your light industrial and industrial uses, and also those areas that are appropriate within the business park area. That's why Sencal Brothers was first approved for their development agreement within that area. That's why you see some of those businesses that have moved through the process over there by Sycamore, because those are all considered the business park zone or districts. As far as how many businesses that we're getting, one of the things that we have the benefit of being able to use those different zones or districts is that we can guard against things like undue concentrations. So with a cultivation business over here and being over here, we're not stacking them all together, which is not in the best interest of the city, and it's not looked at very favorably through the state as well. But as we currently exist, not all of the businesses that entitled their properties through a development agreement or a conditional use permit, not all of them have pursued those businesses in Atwater. So although it appears like we go through this process time and time again, we have to be fair to all applicants. When they come in and they present us with materials that are complete, we have to treat them all the same. Not all of those businesses are prepared to deal with the longevity of the permitting process or that of a business. So a lot of them, even though it looked like or appeared they made it to the finish line, that finish line is where they stumbled and they didn't proceed. So any of those conditional use permits that have lapsed longer than 6 months in duration without operations beginning, they're no longer active, including one of the cultivation businesses that you were asking about. So there's not an overabundance of them. Currently, at the city, there are only 3 businesses that are in operation right now under an existing valid conditional use permit. There are 2 that are operational because of a retail license and 1 under a manufacturing license, and that's the only ones that, and they're all in the industrial park. I hope that answers at least some of your questions. And if you have any other questions and you need to come by community development, I'm happy to work with you.
Mayor Pro Tem, there are no other public comments.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council.
So I want to make a comment about that, Pastor. So when I Google the address, what comes up is that little house there on the corner with the beautiful bougainvillea out front that I'm like, I want to buy that. Anyway, but from my understanding, confirming with Lori, this is still on the same side of the tracks as Teasdale, because we did have a concern at one point, kind of in my mind, where the industrial, and it is a little farther because we have our business park, our Target and Walmart and all that over there as well. But to me, my understanding is we weren't bringing anything on this side of the tracks because now we're nearer to churches, schools. Okay, so in looking, so I Googled it to see kind of what you saw, and in that, it does give the perspective that it's right there near the automotive, which in fact, it's back further over by Teasdale, beside them a little bit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that what, did you understand the location correctly? Or are you like me, where I just looked at the Google map, it kind of took me to a wrong location?
Right, so, yes, I know you don't like to engage in dialogue, so we won't, but that, for me, I guess I was looking more at night, I was looking at the railroad tracks like you, but at that area, I was a little bit confused about where it was gonna be.
Okay.
It does still seem like it's getting invasive, the whole island project.
I want to say, and like Mr. Thompson said, there's so many that keep coming, and I've kind of lost track, and I'm at, like you, I'm at most of the meetings too, and I couldn't tell you even sitting up here exactly how many have come and how many we've looked at and how many we've approved. So maybe we could get some clarification at the next meeting as to what exactly is operating right now. But I do know that a lot who have come and jumped through a lot of hoops and gone all the way to the end have still kind of fizzled out, and in actuality never came to light as an operating business. So I do hear your concerns with that. It is also a concern of mine, where I think I think you and I might have a lot of the same views on the cannabis, where I know that there's a lot of good positive parts about it too. There's still some that are a little nervous to me. But then again, that this is the time and what the voters have made legal and where we're at. One good thing I can say is, and I don't know if Chief could comment on this, but through what we hear and see, I haven't really seen any huge negative impact to our community that a lot of people were nervous about. I haven't heard of any, any kind of raids or anything crazy happening. So the people that are currently operating seem to be operating in a very professional, safe manner. So that's very good, and it also is a financial benefit to the city. So as long as we can keep going like that, but I do want you to know that, I think we've spoke about this before too. I do hear your concerns, and I do have some of the same as well. That's it for me.
And then, Professor Miller, a little over a week ago, I contacted an individual that deals with homeless people about those homeless, that homeless encampment that is right next to the tracks. And again, I'm sure you heard this before. That is Union Pacific Railroad's property. We can't do anything about it, but we sent out a bunch of an individual and their team to go out there and try to convince them that this is not the place to be, even though they have a wood pile out there to shed up so that they can burn wood and do all this. And the pile of debris is continuous, and they encourage them that they could be helped and they could help them, and they were like, oh, we're okay, we're good. And until Union Pacific does something, we're kind of stuck with those individuals. I feel you. I feel it too. I don't want that to be up there either. So.
He did. Mayor Pro Tem, you went ahead and closed the public hearing, am I correct?
Yes, I already closed the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
What is the council's pleasure?
A motion to approve staff's recommendation as presented.
Second.
Motion by
Vieira?
Ambrose, second by Kale. Call for the question.
Vieira?
Yes.
Kale?
Yes.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Reports and presentations from staff. A resolution approving an amendment to the power purchase agreement for energy related to improvements to the City of Atwater facilities with California Solar 3 LLC. Public Works Director Thompson. Community Director.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. If you give me just 1 second, I've got about 1.5 inches of my own material to wade through.
Actually, Mayor
That
Pro
doesn't
Tem,
surprise me.
Mayor Pro Tem, this is City Manager Waterman. I can go ahead and
Yes, ma'am.
address this item, and we do have a shoe on the line as well if there's any questions from NG. But this particular item is a power purchase agreement from Solar Energy out at the wastewater treatment plant. This was brought and presented to the City Council back in December and was adopted. What this amendment does is it has a zero investment on behalf of the city, but when PG&E changed their rates allowing for expanded solar energy, the project was expanded to change the size and the rate of the project area for an additional savings to the city of approximately $3.7 million over 30 years, sorry. And this is on top of the $13.4 million in anticipated revenue on top of this. So that's just a synopsis of this item. And if you have any questions, we do have a shoe with us on the line as well.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions from the
questions.
public?
So
Go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, just to piggyback off of what City Manager Waterman had introduced, just as a reminder, what we're asking the council for consideration on this evening is this is an amendment to an existing agreement. Council has already voted in favor of the power purchase agreement, and as she stated, this amendment would only address the expansion of the array and size of it for more power production and the compensation schedule.
We just approved this about, I was going to say about 3 or 4 months ago, because I remember speaking kind of strongly on it. I mean, so soon that we need an expansion? Why do we need an expansion so soon?
The thing that changed was the ability to enter into a net energy metering tariff, whereas that may not, for the full project or portions of the project, that were not available before, but Ashu can speak to that.
So before we weren't able to enter into that, and now we are. Yeah, if he could explain that a little bit, that would be great.
Ashu, were you able to hear the question clearly? Yeah. Ashu? Yeah, he's on.
Oh, I apologize. I had myself on mute from earlier and I never took the mute off. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for that. Well, good evening, everyone. This is Ashu Jain with NG. I did hear the question. When the council approved the project back in December, there were two parts of the project. Both are installed at the wastewater treatment plant. One feeds all the city facilities where solar is not currently installed, and the other one feeds the wastewater treatment plant. The one that feeds the wastewater treatment plant, that is the one we are amending. We are requesting an amendment for. What had happened was that PG&E has changed their rates, and it gets a little technical. There are rates that, because you have an existing solar project that you have grandfathered into, and PG&E put new rates in the picture. So we did our calculation all over again, and it made sense to expand the size of the project by around 800 kilowatts. Now, again, there is no downside to the city for this. You don't have to make any investment in the project as before, and you get positive savings. So you do get additional $3.7 million as the city manager mentioned. So really, there's no downside. It's all upside here, and it happened because of the change in rates from PG&E. It was a net metering project earlier, and it still is, so that has not changed.
Anyone else have any questions for Ashu? If not, we will open up public comment.
Mayor Pro Tem, there's no one present for public comment.
Okay. All right, we'll close public comment if there's no one there and bring it back to the dais.
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation and authorize and direct the city manager to execute the amendment to the agreement.
Is there a second?
Before I second that, Cindy, did you have any more questions? I know you're.
No, I mean, I remember when we first looked at this in December, and I just felt really strong about it then, simply because I just felt like I had some questions that weren't answered, and we had made solar decisions in the past that were just not beneficial to the city. So we just went into this contract in December, and now rates have changed, so this has changed. I do have a concern. What if rates go up? And then, are we locked into this now? If rates go up, are they going to come back and now we pay more? It just...
The rates were always, the rates are locked for 28 years, our rates, and the starting rate actually has gone down But even at you know the initial rate is you know it's 5.73 cents for this NEM project, and even in 28 years, it only goes up to 16.5 cents. You know, so you are and you're paying, you know, you'll be paying much less than PG&E on this. I mean, it starts at 5.73 cents.
I'll go ahead and second.
Okay, motion by Kale, second by Embry. Call for the question.
Kale?
Yes.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Vieira? Yes, only because we are simply amending an agreement that we're already in. But I'm still standing behind a little bit of my concern on this, but I will vote yes at this time.
Raymond?
I'm with Cindy, so yes.
Not sure. Motion passes.
The resolution approving a budget amendment to the TCP fund. Community Development Director Thompson.
Good evening again, and thank you for your consideration of this item. What staff is asking for by this resolution is to amend the budget for fiscal year 1920 to increase the funding for the 123 TCP fund. What we're doing here is we've got obligations of the TCP mitigation requirements, which were a mandate of the state, and we are making sure that we have available funds to meet the obligations of that particular measure. If you will look at the staff report, we include in it and identify the funds that would be funded by this. Basically, in a nutshell, what you have is some professional services that we have had to contract for relative to the TCP fund, and also we had to make sure and cover the obligations of the TCP improvements that we wanted to put under Winton Way so we're not tearing pavement back up.
Does anybody in the council have any questions for Director Thompson?
I don't have a question. I know we've talked about this before in quite depth, and I think what we were able to fit into the Winton Way program and be a little proactive with that towards our TCP was really a good thing. So we're spending it now and saving a lot later to undo what we already did. So are we ready for a motion, or do we need to do public?
No, we're going to open it to public comment.
Okay.
So we're going to open public comment. Anybody like to come speak, come up to the podium?
Mayor Pro Tem, there is no one present for public comment.
Okay, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the dais. Council, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a comment. I know that I had spoken previously in a separate meeting with Director Thompson and City Manager with questions that I had, and I felt really good about the decisions that were made. So I would like to go ahead and make a motion to approve staff's recommendations as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Zero, second by Kale. Call for the question.
Ambrose?
Yes.
Kale?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 13, approving contract change order to general construction contract, Rolf Construction Company for the Winton Way reconstruction project. Community Development Director Thompson.
I know I'm trying not to hog the microphone tonight, I promise, but we just have a lot going on. So I want to make sure that to the Mayor Pro Tem and to the rest of the council, they're very clear on what staff is recommending and asking of the council this evening. When we started work on the Winton Way reconstruction project, it uses local regional funds for the repavement of that project. And what we have done is we've had to lace into it other project requirements, again, along the same lines as we just discussed with the TCP. We wanted to introduce new water valves. We wanted to introduce a new sewer line. We wanted to do the project one time to prevent a maintenance nightmare for city staff and for the residents. So that's what we're doing by this, to create two items that we're requesting. One is so that we can create a good, solid administrative record for the project, because we have a lot of eyes looking on it. It's one of the largest funded regional projects that there has been under Measure V. So we want to create a good administrative record, and we're asking to certify and reapprove contract change orders that came before 1 through 6, and approve change orders 7 and 8, which were relative to the TCP project. That's why the funding that was created on the previous action is so important to this particular action here.
I think if I can interject, also on change order number 7, it's in the amount of $26,424, and then change order 8 is in the amount of $2,009. So the project total is $587,608.50, but the change orders themselves are significantly less.
Correct. For this particular action, that we're just asking for recertification and reapproval for the first actions for the administrative record. On the two actions that are before you tonight were those that were anticipated by the TCP project, and they are at a much lesser amount. It's about $29,000.
So I have a question for Director Thompson.
Yes, sir.
Are we still coming in under budget on this project?
We're coming in for those regional funds. Considering all of the actions that you have seen, and we've tried to explain each and every one of those and outlined them in your staff report so you could see what those actions are. Each one of those items and the direction under the have come in at budget.
Okay, thank you.
It was 2.6 to begin with, and it still ended up being 2.6.
Correct. The only thing that exceeded the original project is the newly introduced items such as the TCP pipeline and such.
And again, as previously discussed, it allowed us to expand our scope of the project.
Yeah.
Make it a much larger project.
And some of these reasons when we did this, I saw that it actually took away the previous, what we thought it was going to cost us was actually somewhat lower than in some areas because we were adding these things, correct?
That is correct. One of the change orders that were previously approved actually added $40,000 of value. Because of value engineering, we were able to save that money and reintroduce it into the project.
Good job.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Hearing none at this time, we'll open public comment.
Mayor Pro Tem, there are no public present for comment.
Okay, close public comment, bring it back to the dais.
I'd make a motion to approve staff's recommendation as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Vieira, second by Ambrose. Call for the question.
Ambrose,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
excuse me, Raymond? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Comments from the public.
At this time, any person may comment on any item which is not on the agenda. You may state your name and address for the record, however, is not required. Action will not be taken on an item that is not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and or placed on a future agenda. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes.
Do we have any comment cards?
Mayor Pro Tem, I haven't received any speaker cards, but I have received 2 comments over email prior to the meeting at 5 p.m.
Okay.
Would
Would you like to enter those into the record or read them if your throat will allow?
Yes, please. Mr. Mayor and council members, Keith Pulowski, Atwater. According to a dispatcher she posted in Facebook, there were 12 police officers counting the cop working the night of July 4th. Could the council provide the public with the amount of illegal fireworks confiscated by the police department, along with the number of citations issued on July 4 by the police department for possession of illegal fireworks? Thank you. That was the end of the public comment.
Okay. We will go ahead and move on to city council matters.
I have another one.
Discussion and possible,
Mayor Pro Tem.
I thought you said that was the end of public comment. My apologies.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Continue, I apologize.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Gutierrez, and I reside at 1300 3rd Street in Atwater, and I have for the last 4 years. Throughout this time, there have always been issues with the sycamore trees that surround our home. Recently, we've experienced and witnessed instances that could have been potentially harmful to us, pedestrians, and cyclists while passing through our house. Please keep in mind our cars are not an exception. On May 8th, around 12 in the afternoon, a branch collapsed from a tree on my 4-year-old son as he was playing in our front yard. Please note that this has affected my son as we struggled till this day to take him to the front of the house to play, as he states the tree will fall on him again. I immediately called the city of Atwater and spoke to Gloria, whom I was already familiar with as I had called her 3 or 4 previous times, asking to address branches that were hanging on to nothing, and in one instance almost fell on a cyclist passing by our neighborhood on the side of our house. They have also fallen, if not on, an inch from our cars on other occasions. I expressed my concerns and was very straightforward that I had warned the city of the probability of this happening. I did mention to her that this had led to a scratch and redness around the left shoulder, but certainly could have been worse. She immediately asked to send photographs of any injuries, as well as photographs of the branch that had fell on my son. And finally, one that was hanging onto nothing in front of our home to a cell phone that she had provided through our text correspondences. Ken eventually made his way to our house that day, where we again explained the situation. He explained to us that he was unsure of city's ordinance, as they may not be able to trim down the branches for liability reasons. He only removed a branch that was hanging to nothing that day. Please note that after 4 attempts to have someone come and assess the trees, we were frustrated when Ken stated he'd have to return at a later time to verify whether trimming the branches was a possibility. He, however, assured he'd contact us by Monday the following week. On May 18th, she responded stating she was under assumption that he'd already trimmed a few branches. Not too long after, Ken came to our home and handed my husband a pamphlet indicating no responsibility for upkeep of trees along, although it considered a city tree. On June 12th, I called to ask how to proceed with obtaining a permit to remove the city tree. I did mention I had 2 different contractors come to look at the trees, both of which stated the trees surrounding our home had diseases and should not be considered safe due to the condition the trees are in. The branches being a hazard and so forth, the branches and shedding also having huge impact to our roof as fallout hardens and remains stuck. Contractors also questioned that statement, and we have no control over the city tree and yet are responsible. Sylvia, in all due respect, seemed frustrated, stated and addressed my concern to a city council meeting. I opted for the superintendent's email to express my concern. On June 15th, I emailed the superintendent and yet to receive a response. Those are all the public comments that I've received via email.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak to public comment?
At this time, Mayor, there will be people that will come to the podium to state public comment.
Okay, so I'm going to have 2 comments, one as a resident and then one as a pastor, okay? So first off, Rich Miller, 334 Silva Drive. Thank you, Director Thompson, for the explanation. That did help. It really did.
Happy to
Because
spend more
once
time.
again, we get so much information and you see all these names, and I think that's what you've said before, Councilmember Vieira's. We hear all these names, but trying to process it is really hard. So thank you for the explanation. Councilmember Vieira, thank you for the empathy. I'm trying to keep this alliterated. Thank you for the empathy. I appreciate it. Once again, I do understand that we all have different views on cannabis use, and I do believe there are some good uses for it and stuff. And I understand this is a business decision. I just wanted to try to get an explanation on that. So thank you both. And Councilmember Kale, thank you for your encouragement on the homeless matter. So as a resident, here's what I would like to ask, and I don't know what directions or we've attacked this with, because I know we have. I know the mayor's gone out there. I know other council members or people from our community, law enforcement, have gone out there. Maybe you guys have already attacked from this angle. I don't know. But one recommendation was if we go at it from the public health angle, where it's, once again, it's a farce to tell churches or other businesses, you have to have face masks and you have to follow all these protocols, but we have people living out there in an unhygienic way, where there could be disease out there, and then they're walking into the same stores we're walking into, and they're not washing their hands, and they're not using hand sanitizer, and we could be spreading more germs that way than through the current virus situation. So maybe from a public health and public health department angle, or which I never like to take this next one, but from a lawsuit angle, that the city sue the owners of the property, the railroad, for not maintaining, because someone could get hit, someone could die out there, and there's other things that could happen. So we were talking about blight as one of the issues that we wanted to get taken care of. Well, I've talked to Public Works people, and I mentioned Ken, and I'd like to once again say Public Works, even though I know there was an email about it, I know they're doing everything they can. They've been a huge help to our church as we've almost got to the end of our water problem. But with that being said, we want to clean up our city. But if we have people that are living here and they aren't keeping their area clean, how can we do that? So that's from a resident. Now, quickly from a pastor, thank you once again for making it a sanctuary city, Atwater, for small businesses and churches. And we appreciate your support, especially in light of what's been announced today. And so thank you for backing small businesses and churches. We appreciate it.
Chief, can you maybe address the homeless situation out there right now?
Yes. We've been in constant contact with state railroad officials. We get various finger pointing in each direction. One, from the railroad, they don't have the resources to handle that. Two, from the state, if you're willing to provide shelter and care for these people, they'll come in and clean up for you, and that's directly from Caltrans itself. We have basically taken control of all the areas that we can actually have some sort of influence in. Some at the taxpayer's expense, some at just constant contact. Unfortunately, once they're on state property or private property, it does become the property owner's responsibility to take control of their properties and deal with the issues. And of course, at the state level, once they're on state property, you can't touch them because the state owns the property. So we're continuing to do everything we possibly can to engage role players and stakeholders in this. Unfortunately, we're almost out of bullets in the gun, pardon me.
Chief, I believe that we have reached out to the railroad, and
we have.
There is a list, and they cycle through in different areas, so we are on the list, but
yeah,
as quick as we'd like to see.
It comes through. It's almost like you just saw the railroad district come through and replace all the railroad ties, right? So, unfortunately, I can't sit here and tell the community that those people are going to be gone tomorrow. And I know that's what this community wants. I can't tell you that. So regarding that piece of the pie, we continue to engage. We will continue to engage and do everything we possibly can to mitigate the impact of the homeless in the community, make sure that they're offered the services that they can get, because the services are there. It is truly, we can lead the horse to water. It's the making him drink part that makes it real difficult. And I want to thank the business owners and the property holders here in town that aren't multi-million-dollar corporations, because they do a lot to help us minimize homeless impacts to the community. So we will continue to work on it. We will continue to monitor the situation, be kind of a squeaky wheel in that cog, and do everything we possibly can to mitigate it. But as you drive up and down 99, we're not alone. And it truly is a statewide issue. The governor's, even, whether you like or not, has spoken about it. So,
Mayor Pro Tem, is it okay that we have Chief also address the fireworks question right now? I know that it's a brief comment, but I think it would be much well received from the rest of the audience.
Yes, ma'am. That's fine. Go ahead, Chief.
thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. July 4th, we did have a maximum enforcement period. We put out, contrary to what you saw on Facebook, we were in every neighborhood. We divided the city up into 4 quadrants. We had both marked and unmarked vehicles in those quadrants. We made over 30 seizures of fireworks throughout the city. We did put a picture on that. That was a portion of what we took. This was the first year we did not have help from CAL FIRE. We did this as a police department activity only. We did cite 3 people for illegal fireworks. A lot of people, we confiscated their fireworks and we gave them warnings about fireworks. We did 30, like I said, over 30 seizures. I had 3 of them myself. The use of the hybrid vehicles and the unmarked hybrid vehicles that we have in the inventory now allowed us to get into places that we wouldn't have been able to get into with marked patrol cars. In fact, marked patrol car would go down the street, and 2 minutes later we'd send an unmarked vehicle down the street and make the seizure. That happened right here outside of City Hall. Marked patrol car goes down the street, all the fireworks get put away. I'm waiting at the end of the corner, and an unmarked car, and they launch 3 mortar rounds, and then I come around the corner and get them, and I take a 6-pack of 5-inch mortar rounds. They're shooting over the top of City Hall.
Mayor Pro Tem, there is no one else present for public comment.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to city council matters, this time for real. Discussion and possible action regarding a 4-month stay on water rate increase. Councilmember Ambrose.
So I want to bring up this discussion and possible action, mainly because we already know what COVID-19 is doing to our community, especially now with the shutdowns again. More people are going to be out of work and so forth. So what I want to entertain, or at least discuss with you guys here, is possibly delaying the price increase for our water. I know we just voted on this early 2019, and I understand that we as a city just went ahead and implemented those changes for the month of July. So yeah, I would like to hear your guys' opinion about at least putting a stop going forward for the next 3 to 4 months. I know it says 4 months. I'm even willing to go 3 months just to try to save our residents some money.
I agree with you, Danny, 100%, and I don't think you're asking too much for 4 months. Simply because everybody that just went back to work and began to breathe and has now probably stopped receiving an unemployment check needed to go home today and reapply for unemployment. And, we're all in this together, and when there are times in the city when we need to reach out to our citizens and ask them to pay more, we certainly do that. And now it's our time as a city to say, hey, we want to help you. So let's give back to them. I think 4 months is absolutely appropriate. I would stand behind you on that decision.
I also agree with you, Danny. I think this is a great idea, and that, like Cindy, like you said, a lot of people, and this also affects the businesses too, because they're going to be paying waters too. So I think this is a wonderful idea, and I agree that 4 months is easily done.
City Manager Warden, I know you said Director Jacobs Hunter is available to speak.
Yes, good evening.
What's your take on this, Director?
The council on January 28th and 19 adopted a 5-year comprehensive water and wastewater cost service study that was completed by a consultant. And as part of that plan, there are increases that are set to go into effect annually, or actually every July 1st, except for the very first increase. There had been it did not go into effect till February of 19, and then after that it's been July 1st. The fiscal impact that we can expect to see in our water fund by delaying the increase that was scheduled or is scheduled to go into effect July 1st is approximately $33,300 per month. So you figure for 4 months, that would be what, $132,000 and some change. Just so everybody is aware, that is an impact to the water fund that would occur. Also, under the governor's executive order that was issued back on April 2nd, which is Executive Order N-42-20. At that time, he is put into effect, and it remains in effect until he, I guess, rescinds it or revises it. There was no sunset date on it. We are prohibited from discontinuing water service to any of our customers for non-payment. We are also not charging any of the standard late fees or shut-off fees. So for the months of April and May, just so you can get an idea of the revenue that had COVID-19 not hit us, we would have had approximately $16,000 in late and shut-off fees for April and May. Those have been waived. None of the residents are being charged late or shut-off fees, nor are they being shut off. They still are responsible for their bill, but we are following the governor's executive order. And I did check today, and that order will remain in effect for utility disconnections until he rescinds it or amends it. There is a lot of his executive orders have sunset dates on them. For instance, like December, this one does not. So I don't know for how long that the city can anticipate that would not be something we will be collecting. This is entirely council's decision. 4 months is a short period of time. It does just push back that 5-year plan that the study adopted, but only by 4 months. Our July bills have already been calculated and went out. So what we would do is in August, we would revert back to the previous rate. So it would be August, September, October, and November should council vote for a 4-month. So, does that help answer the question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
Does anybody else have questions for Director Jacobson?
I do have one, and this is one that you and I have already talked about a few times as well, but I just want to make sure that it's out there for the public as well. So when we went and approved our budget recently, these, the price increases were not figured in those numbers, correct?
That is correct. In the revenue estimates that I did for the water fund, I didn't incorporate the increase due to we're right in the middle of COVID, and actually we're probably even deeper into it now than we were when I was preparing the budget. So I realized that the waiver of the penalties and the late fees and the shutoffs, knowing that the city would be impacted by that, I did not put a rate, or I did not estimate the revenue from the rate increase. So the water fund, it is balanced, and that was even without that. But I did not remove, we kept the same revenue estimate from 1920, which did have some of the late fees and penalties, but they are less than what the rate increase would generate.
Anyone else? Hearing nothing, we'll open it to public comment. Anybody in the audience would like to come forward, feel free.
Oh, no, I will. I was waiting to see if anybody. Mayor Pro Tem, there is no one present for public comment.
Okay, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the dais.
I'd like to make a motion, putting a stay on the water increase for 4 months.
I'll second.
Motion by Ambrose, second by Kale. Call for the question.
If I may interrupt, this is Frank Spiller, City Attorney. Just to clarify the motion, I believe that would be starting August 1st.
That is correct, starting August 1st.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kale, is that the same time frame you had in mind?
Yeah, the way that works out will be right after the election. Everything will be fine.
Then go ahead and call for the question.
Kale,
Yes.
Ambrose,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
motion passes.
City Council comments. Start with Councilman Kale.
Well, congratulations to all the Porch Patriots. I almost said Porch Pirates. And all the people in there. I knew the first place winners, and I knew my son lives on White Plains, so I was very proud of those guys. I want to tell everybody to please stay cool. We have cooling zones available here in the city, so please utilize them. And to be try to be as safe as we can, and we'll figure out what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. It'll be very interesting. And then I have an adjournment later. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Vieira.
Let's see what. We thought Danny was going to go next, so I wasn't quite ready. I want to say I thought that the porch parade was an ingenious idea, and that Atwater continues to shine and kind of find a way to shine through even in the darkest of times. And we are indeed in very, very strange times. And then again, there we are with our little porch parade. And I was shocked and surprised at the amount of entries and the way that people still wanted to celebrate America and the good feeling of our freedom. I was, and I'm always reminded that, you know, the freedom isn't free. And even though we had, I know that all of us did receive a couple emails, and Chief, I'm sure you did as well, for concerned citizens. I know that the men in my family, which all do, everybody knows, serve in law enforcement, were mandated to work and were not home with their families and children. So I, on the other hand, want to tell the law enforcement officers out there that did work and do their very best to find illegal sparklers in the middle of a backyard, in the middle of a neighborhood, in the middle of an entire city, in the middle of the dark. Thank you very much for giving up time with your family and your children to go out and do that. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, and
It was a huge haystack.
I know it was a big haystack, and like I said, for the men and women in law enforcement, and I don't understand in the city of Atwater why we weren't in cahoots with CAL FIRE this year, but our men went out there, our men and women, and they did a phenomenal job. We all heard, and we all, you know, had our dogs afraid and hiding under the couch. And for the people that did that, you know, shame on them. But you certainly can't take a problem of a few people breaking the laws and shame our law enforcement for it. Because in the middle of finding firecrackers, there were also car accidents where people were injured, medical assistance where people were having heart attacks and being taken to the city, and yet they still had to stop and handle all of that. So I, for one, would like to commend law enforcement on a very safe and sane 4th of July, and let them know how proud and thankful I am for the service they gave to me and my family. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ambrose.
Well said, Cindy. I totally back everything you just said there. Don't have really much to say. Thank you, Mayor Creighton, for showing your live feed of the, what was it, Cruising for Independence? That was nice, seeing that since we didn't have our parade this year, especially with all the different vehicles and everyone else who participated in that. Just continues being safe out there. If you're wanting to wear your mask, wear your mask. If you're not, continue washing your hands. Do everything that you possibly can to do your part to stop COVID-19. That said, good night, and see you guys next time.
Thank you, Danny. I'll be brief here. Just for that 4th of July Porch Parade, City Council District 4 rocked it as Castle Vista and White Pines won. Thank you, guys. You did a great job. With that said, I'm done with my comments there, and typically we would just adjourn the meeting and go on, but unfortunately we had 3 members of the community since we last gathered that have recently passed, and so there's a in memory of 3 different people. First is going to be Martha Jansen, who was born and raised in Atwater, and during the holidays, she would work in soup kitchens to help those less fortunate. She also worked for the city of Atwater for 8 years as a personal technician, where she supported multiple staff members and was always willing to help everyone. Martha retired from the city of Atwater and moved to her happy place, Ashland, Oregon, where she enjoyed watching Shakespeare plays and hanging out with her dog. And Mr. Kale, would you like to go with yours?
I'd like to say this is in memory of Nada Pajan. Nada Pajan was born in Atwater, enjoyed going to garage sale and estate sales, loved do-it-yourself projects. She was a great seamstress who made many of her own clothes, as well as First Communion and prom dresses for her grandchildren. Nada also volunteered her time to work at Merced County and at Mercy Hospital to drive cancer patients to their appointment. and assist in the annual Follies and fundraiser, and she was the mother of our past Sheriff Mark Payson. So we do this in memory of Nada Payson.
Thank you, John. And I knew Mrs. Payson. She was a great woman with a great family. And lastly, this one hurts a little more because it was a friend of mine, Sergeant Carlos Torres, 35 years old, was born September 17th, 1985, and he was the third child of 7 to his parents, Martha Rajas de Tejera, and his stepfather, who was his dad, the man who raised him, the man he loved as his dad, Mario Tejera. And Carlos moved here when he was young. He was born in, I believe it was Salinas, and moved to Atwater, where he attended Bellevue School, Mitchell School, and graduated a Falcon from Atwater High in 2003. And from there, he went on and joined the Army and served 12 years and 2 months, where he moved up to the rank of sergeant. Carlos had 6 children, 4 girls, 2 boys, who he leaves behind. He was a good kid, and everybody in him loved him. And he came back. He served 2 tours in Iraq, protecting our country, protecting our freedoms that we cherish so much. And he was recently moved to Arizona, where his most recent assignment was working with the riots and the protests. And tragically passed away last week. And we just, we want to keep the family and his friends in our thoughts and our prayers, and our hearts go out to you. And so, in memory of Martha Jansen, Nada Payson, and Sergeant Carlos Torres, we adjourn this meeting.